Hey, what's up, everyone? It's Zach from the ZAP podcast. I have always wanted to start a podcast, but I never knew where to start or where to even begin. And then I stumbled across the Anchor app. I love the Anchor app because it's completely free and it has all the editing and uploading capabilities that you need right from your phone. So it's super easy and super user friendly. If you've always wanted to start a podcast, go download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. All right, let's get on to the episode. All right, what's up, everyone? It's Zach, and today I'm here with a very special guest. I'm here with Shannon Hoffman. Shannon, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you doing, Zach?
Good, glad to hear it. I'm doing well. Thanks for asking, and thanks for taking some time to be a part of this.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited to chat.
Of course. So, for everyone listening back home, Shannon is an educator. She is also a collaborator, an activator, and right now, one of her main focuses is that she is running for Denver City Council. So, very, very interesting kind of background and story for Shannon. But that's just kind of like the little surface kind of background information on her. Do you mind going a little bit more in depth about who you are, what you're doing these days, all that good stuff?
For sure. Yeah. So I am running for Denver City Council. Um, it's non I'm sorry.
You're good.
I was gonna go into the weeds a little bit, and I always pause myself and think, should I go that far into the weeds? Yes, I'm running for Denver City Council. I also work full time for a nonprofit that has recently become a community development corporation. So, the idea being that, neighborhoods and communities have an opportunity to be the developers and decide what kind of development happens in their neighborhoods. Um, so that's where I currently work. And I'm also a renter and I'm definitely a housing advocate. So that's a space where I spend a lot of my time currently. And all of those things are, I'm learning, pretty rare for elected officials. It's pretty rare that we have renters in office, despite the fact that we have so many people who are renters in our country, and that's the case in Denver as well. There are no renters on city council. Um, and it's also pretty rare that we have people that um, are working full time while they are running for office, which is often because people that run often come from some kind of like familial wealth, which I do not have. So I do need to keep working while I'm running as well. So yeah, that's a little bit about me, who I am currently.
Awesome. That is a lot of good insight, and I didn't realize the lack of renters when it came to elected officials and such.
Yeah, I honestly I didn't either. Someone that I ended up having coffee with who's a professor shared that fact with me from a book, and she just said, I'm really happy to see that you're running and that you're putting forward, so fully that you are someone who rents, because it's so rare. But when you think about the fact that you need some basis of wealth to be able to run traditionally,
Hmm.
um, then home ownership is a way of developing that.
Right. Definitely. And, Shannon, you mentioned that in addition to like just various things that you're an advocate for, you're working full time and you're also running for city council. How do you balance everything that you have going on? I can imagine you're probably always on the go and constantly busy with everything.
Yeah, I don't often feel like I am that balanced or doing a good job.
Okay.
I think I must give the perception that I am because I get that comment a lot.
Yeah.
um, but mostly, it's like it's really looking at your calendar as a big Tetris game. And I will say that like I have the privilege that while I am working, the job that I have um allows me that kind of flexibility. It's not like a clock in, clock out 9 to 5 type deal. So that is definitely a big advantage and privilege. But I guess, the other piece is just that, like, I have some really good friends. I really try to invest in self care, like therapy and massages and things like that.
Yeah.
Because I just think that um, it's helpful to keep being able to push forward.
Yeah, definitely. I think that self-care is a very important thing that sometimes that might be the first thing that we as humans are willing to let go to the wayside, but it's important because, if we're not feeling our best, then we can't, give our bests in our relationships, in our jobs, in our, passions, whatever it is. So we have to make sure that we're investing in ourselves and taking care of ourselves in every aspect as well.
Totally. And I think often if you're like in a giver type role, whether that's like um, a grassroots candidate running for office and an educator, a social worker, what a mom, what have
Hmm.
you, like it's often a lot of like guilt too of like, do I deserve this, to
Yeah.
take a break?
Yeah, that is a good point too. But to anyone listening, if you're questioning that, you do deserve it 100%. So please know that.
Yes.
So, Shannon, I guess what inspired you or motivated you to want to run for city council in Denver?
Yeah. I in the, I'm well, I guess it's in some ways I feel like I could tell like a long story of like um my trajectory into electoral politics, and maybe we'll get into that.
Yeah.
But the shorter story of like my time here in Denver is that in the summer of 2020, when we saw uprisings across the country against police violence and the murder of George Floyd, I had a friend here in Denver who runs a Black theater company called Emancipation Theater. And he had started this group called Allies to Abolitionists, which was about, it was specifically targeted to white people who were asking, we're coming awake to the fact that um, there is systemic racism in this country, and we have a responsibility as white people to do something about that. And what can we do? So he started this group. And so I met with him for coffee and was like, I see what you're doing. Where I'd moved from was Memphis, Tennessee, where I had many friends there, a part of this organization called the uh, Mid South Peace and Justice Center. Lots of people in Memphis gave me lots of learning, but especially the Peace and Justice Center taught me a lot about organizing. So when I sat with my friend about this allies to abolitionist thing, I said, I'd really like to leverage those skills here in Denver. So we ran two pretty successful campaigns. One was called Justice for Rivera, which really picked up on some work that community organizers had done several years beforehand, and is for a local artist who had been beat by allied private security guards at our train station and bus station in the center of the city. Um, and he has a permanent brain injury now because of that. So I led this group of community researchers to put together this um, spreadsheet, basically, but really information packet about how this private company, Allied Security, is one of the most violent security companies in the world. And through that, and really like educating folks on how to engage with city council. We stopped a multi-million dollar contract with the city and Allied Security, and Rivero received a settlement. Um, then we went on to do a second campaign about the sweeps or traumatic displacements of unhoused neighbors. So when we have a policy that criminalizes poverty and people that are forced to sleep outside. It's called the urban camping ban in Denver. It makes it illegal for anyone to cover themselves with a tarp, tent, blanket, or anything of the sort.
Mhm.
And that policy was actually found by a state court um, to be unconstitutional, though it is still like in our municipal code. Um, but what our city now does is they go to unhoused folks and say either like you're creating an encumbrance, so you're blocking
Mhm.
the street or the sidewalk, or they say that their space is a health hazard because there's no trash service, so there's no place for folks to go to the bathroom. In any case, we ran like this another research project that looked at how much money that costs the city when we forcibly remove people and push them around block to block, and we found that it costs between $5,000 to $20,000 each time the city conducts
Wow.
those sweeps, depending on like the size of the encampment and the kind of equipment and people power used to forcibly remove people. Um, so through all of that, I worked with my neighbors. I engaged my city council person, was very unhappy with the really ways in which the city council person in our district was not like listening to community members and advocating for the most marginalized. And so after talking to some of my neighbors, hearing that, you know, they would like to see more of an advocate in that position, I decided to um, go for it. And along the way too, I've done a lot of like training programs to learn how to run because there's so many steps involved. But that was
Mhm.
really like the thing that those were the things that like got me paying attention to local government and thinking that we could see something different in our city if we wanted it.
Yeah. I think that that's a great kind of just story that you shared about what has led you to the position that you're in now, and I think that it's one of those things that I think about, like, I think it's a Mahatma Gandhi quote that's, "Be the change that you wanna see in the world," and I think it's like, there's a lot of times where we want to make a difference, we wanna make a positive impact, we wanna be a change it would be like a force of change, and I think that this is a good example of you, just with your story realizing through yourself and with your neighbors that you want to see some positive change and you have some ideas, so why not you, like, why can't it be you that runs and tries to you know be that positive change or be that difference maker. So I think that that's really cool.
Thank you. Yeah, it's and I hope that it does encourage other people to also think of to themselves, why not me, you know,
Yeah.
because I think we think it has to be some um I don't know, some kind of person that's like up on a pedestal or something, you know, like
Yeah.
for me too, like that's the last thing I want people to think about me. I just want people to think I'm a regular person who rents an apartment and has a job and I'm running for office. There's nothing extraordinary about me, you know, because I want other folks um to think that for themselves that they could do this too.
Yeah. So I kind of want to piggyback off that, and I like the approach that you have about like the relatability of like you're just a normal person, so you want to encourage other people to think like, why not me? But you kind of mentioned how that is kind of who you are and the background that you have, and I would guess that other candidates, not necessarily just in Denver, but for office throughout the country, maybe they don't have that kind of image of being a normal person. Maybe they do come from, family within offices or, that kind of like generational wealth that's propelled them there. So, kind of using that idea, like, has there ever been any moments where you feel kind of like that imposter syndrome of like, I'm not qualified for this, or like, I don't have the background that XYZ candidate has. Like, what am I doing? Do you ever have those kind of feelings or thoughts?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
um I think um and I think it comes a lot with like, well, yeah, I guess sometimes with background of like um uh you know, there are some rooms that it is still good for you to go into even if you're running as a grassroots candidate, and I mean
Yeah.
that of like with people who have like major wealth or run like private clubs, you know, like we have some
Mhm.
private clubs here that I've been to, and I definitely have like thought to myself, how did I get here? And all the clothes that I own are from Goodwill. Like, is this okay for me to wear here? You know?
Yeah.
Um, and some of the imposter syndrome often comes to with like, am I smart enough? I am constantly like wondering if I know enough to to do this work. And I mean, really, the especially the job of someone like a city council person that's like working across all kinds of issues
Yeah.
in a city and a neighborhood, the answer really is no. But like, um, what's how I try to think of it too is like my another part of my background is that I studied journalism in undergrad, and I try to think like a journalist where no journalist is an expert in a particular area. They know a lot about a lot of things, and they know how to think about things and gather data and information from people who are experts. Um, but I definitely have moments where I'm like, oh, this is a little out of my depth on particular topic areas, and makes you wonder like, um am I can I, doggy paddle through and through this enough. But one of my boss, and who is also a mentor to me, always is like, never let him see you sweat. So she's always just like, just it's okay to think that way, but don't let other people know that's how you're feeling. And I do think it does require some levels of confidence in yourself so that other people will have that kind of confidence too.
Yeah, I think that that's a really good, piece of advice, and I think it's like it makes me think of that, like, expression, like, "Fake it till you make it," almost of, like, you know, it's a lot, in any situation, any job, you're probably going to feel some sort of, like, imposter syndrome or just question, if you should be in that role or position, but I think, like, just showing that outwards confidence, even if you don't really feel it internally, I think that can almost help and almost sometimes even trick yourself into believing you're a little more confident than you actually are.
Totally.
Yeah,
Totally.
definitely. So I think that like something that I've kind of experienced throughout my life, and I think it's maybe something that might resonate with others is they might be in like someone might be in this position themselves, or they might know people who say like, I don't really care about, my city or my state or even the country when it comes to, um, elections and voting and stuff like that. It's so much work to look at, all the candidates and to learn about them, or just like why does it impact me? To anyone that might be going through that or might think that way or have thought that way, do you have any kind of like advice or insight on like why it actually is important to kind of take some kind of interest into things, whether it's a local election or, statewide or even the country presidential election?
Yeah, I mean, and I guess I'll just tell a little story too of hearing that from some folks, and it was really gut-wrenching.
Mhm.
And and I guess I don't want to be too fatalistic about it, but there are some instances like this story I'm about to tell where it's like there's some truth to that, you know?
Yeah.
Um, so there's a group here in Denver that meets outside of the city and county building where the city council meets, and they meet there. The group meets outside the building on Monday nights while the city council meeting is going on. They're called Mutual Aid Monday, and they provide meals and all kinds of other mutual aid equipment like tents, sleeping bags, heaters, contacts, clothes, glasses, cigarettes, whatever, haircuts, whatever folks need for folks who are unhoused. And close to the most recent November election, um, I the folks that run that had asked me to come out and speak, and I was working on a local ballot initiative, which I can chat more about. But and I was running, I'm still running my campaign because I was on
Mhm.
that ballot anyway. So I went to speak, but we also talked about, wouldn't it be great if we could have some folks there from the Denver City Council or the Denver City Elections Office to offer to folks there to be registered to vote, because in Denver you can get registered to vote if you're unhoused, because there are various places where you can get a PO box address so you can get your ballot mailed to you, or you can go and vote in person.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking to folks there who are houseless and asking them if they wanted to get registered to vote, and they were just like, every politician comes around and says the same thing and nothing changes. And so, no, I'm not motivated to vote. And that was gut wrenching, because
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, like everybody says the same thing and then you're still sleeping outside. I do not blame you. I do
Right.
not blame you for being like, you know what? I'm just going to do whatever I have to do to survive. And I don't know if voting is a part of that. And so, I guess I think that's just an important point too for folks with privilege to think about. Sometimes we get mad at folks from marginalized groups for like not voting or what have you, and it's just like, you got to take a look at it from their perspective.
Yeah.
Um, from where I sit, and I do have, privilege, like I have a place to sleep and eat and warmth and a computer and the internet, all these things.
Yeah.
Um, so therefore, I have a responsibility to my community members, to my ancestors that work so hard for me to like be in this position. So yeah, part of that is voting, because the thing is, we pay our taxes, the majority
Mm-hmm.
of us. And that's our money. Like that, that's the thing that I try to get people to really think about. It's like, this is ours. The whole system is ours. All the money is ours. And like, and I really think that that kind of gets somewhere along the line, like taken out of our brains,
Yeah.
because it's just sort of like, well, this is just, some kind of system that we're like forced to participate in, and that's fine. I'll just try to have like a happy life over here in the meanwhile,
Right.
but especially with the dollars piece, like this money is ours, and that money can be leveraged for people to have like healthy, thriving, safe lives. And our participation in how that money is spent um is crucial for ourselves and for our neighbors. And so, having people in these elected positions that think about where we spend our dollars can really change our world.
Yeah. No, that totally makes sense. And I want to first start by saying that I think that, you make a great point about the story that you shared. And it is, gut wrenching to hear about, but it's something that maybe we don't always consider, putting our kind of perspective into the lives of others who, are impacted in these ways that maybe we've never experienced or can't even imagine experiencing. So I think that just kind of recognizing our own privilege, I think is extremely important. But then I also love that you mentioned kind of like the dollar aspect of it, of like, within our local, cities, states, it's the tax money that we pay, it's our money. So it's kind of like, what do we want to see be done with that? And I think that like finding officials who have similar values or have ideas that you resonate with, I think that that's important, and that's a way that we can kind of make this our own thing, not just going through kind of the motions of kind of living wherever you're living.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah. So when it comes to you specifically, Shannon, like as you're running and you're campaigning and everything, I guess what is like the number one or biggest message that you're trying to get out there?
I Well, it's interesting. I just got I'm glad you asked this. This is gonna
Yeah.
help you refine something for something else. I just got I can't say it on here, but I just got an endorsement that I'm really excited about, and I was trying to write it before I came onto this call, and then I was like, "Don't rush it. Like, give yourself more time to think about it."
Yeah.
Um, and I think maybe why I stumble over that is because there are so many things that I am really passionate about.
Right.
But I would say there's two things and they really go together. And it's so the thing I want people to think the most about is housing, but I also am really passionate about talking about co-governance. And what I mean by that is like, this opportunity for people um, to engage in their government systems, and that it can be accessible, understandable, that there's ways for them to participate. And why I think that goes with housing is because I think in this country in general, and we see this in Denver, we see it in major metropolitan cities. I mean, we see it in rural places. Like housing is like a is I think the number one of the number one issues. Also, our climate crisis is
Hmm.
also a huge issue, and they're also connected.
Yeah.
Um, and so so then why co-governance and learning about local government and housing together? Because what we're going to hear from most politicians who have some kind of comms team behind them or whatever is like, which I'm going to hire a comms person because that's just smart, but, but
Right.
I also like mostly I'm like out here just saying what I think. But point is that you're just going to hear platitudes from folks that are like, we need affordable housing. And what I'm trying to encourage is a, a populace, a citizenry, like engaged community members who are like, what do you mean, politician, when you say affordable housing? Right?
Hmm.
Like, and folks who know enough about all of the kinds of levers that we could be pulling in affordable housing, to know to say like, I want to hear you get down to the nitty gritty specifics, and like, here is what we as a community are looking for. Like, we as a community want, um you know I think one of the things we were going to hear from folks that we should be hearing and responding to is reparations, like giving land back. Cities and governments like own land that was stolen from people, that people have been, removed from having access to, from building wealth upon, and that should be given back to people. Like that is a lever that we could pull. We could be looking at collective ownership of land through community land trusts. We could be looking
Hmm.
at um, neighborhoods becoming the developers in their neighborhoods and developing affordable housing and retail spaces on property in their neighborhoods. We could be looking at renters acquiring apartment buildings. We're seeing this happen in like San Francisco and New York City, and having funding so that folks that are forming tenants unions could also be buying their buildings cooperatively. We could be building social housing. Like, if we're not seeing any funding at the federal level for public housing, well, then maybe it's time at a local level we start building it. So, I'm very, very passionate about talking about lots of housing models, but also like, I want folks to know what that means, and for them to be able to define for themselves which of those models that they really like, and that they can also be, poking and prodding people that are running for office to be like, let's get specific.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear these platitudes. So I
Yeah.
hope that's a direct enough answer to your question.
Yeah. No, definitely. I think that's a great answer. And I think that, like, I don't know, when I think about current events or when I think about, elected officials or just anything in like the political realm, I think like it's a lot of the time fueled by kind of like buzzwords or buzz phrases. And I think like affordable housing is something that, gets tossed around, or people, I'm sure probably everyone listening to this has probably heard someone say like, oh, I want affordable housing, or like that's something that's important to me. But I think it's like important to note like, okay, what is affordable housing? Like, what does that look like? Like, my definition of it might be completely different than your definition, which might be completely different than someone else's. And like, just I think, like you said, kind of get the specifics of it and know that like that's part of the process of kind of refining exactly what these models look like or what your thoughts are about these topics, and just like not having it being some like kind of blanket statement or just like something that it's like, oh yeah, we're going to address this, but like how are you actually going to address it?
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah. So, you've mentioned the passion for affordable housing and just housing in general. Where did that passion for housing specifically come from?
Well, it's interesting because I don't like I know so many people who have worked on housing and worked with people who are unhoused for years and years and years. And honestly, I don't have that background. Like my background is being an educator and working with young people who are underrepresented in colleges and universities. So students of color, low income students, s- students from rural communities, adult students in college. Those are the folks that I have like that's my experience and supporting
Hmm.
those folks as they work with nonprofits and work on social justice issues while they're in college. Um, but I think part of that, which is like propelled me into wanting to be more involved in politics, was like then seeing um seeing many of the issues like young folks that the young folks that I worked with had to navigate while just trying to navigate life and college um, are all they're all these system issues that we live with. Um, which then, led me to all the things that I talked about previously that I'm involved with.
Yeah.
And now I work on and then I just sort of stumbled into working at this nonprofit, and I'd say that because, like, I got there because some of my students were interning at this nonprofit. They said, "Hey, we see the community work that you're doing. Would you like to come work with us on this big project we're working on?" Um, and here I am, and now I work on an affordable housing project while I see that being like one of the biggest crises of our time. And part of the way I've seen that is through the way that it has affected students that I've worked with. Students that are
Yeah.
like living in a garage, living in a motel while they're in high school, like trying to take care of their siblings and work and graduate from high school and think about going to college. So I think that's what gets me passionate about it, because I'm like, I like all these young people I have known and still know, I'm like, are phenomenal human beings, and they just should not have um to navigate this. Like, our world does not have to be like this. There are ways that they're just there are different economies and possibilities for our world. I'll just say that for now.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And I think like, with you sharing your personal experiences and your background, I think it makes a lot of sense that like when you know, have seen the ways that this can specifically impact people that people that you've helped, people that you worked with, that just makes it so much more real, right? Like it's one thing to just like understand something is an issue or going on, but like then to actually see it affect people, I think that that's when it's just like, you want to get involved, you want to make a difference because you know how devastating it can be for folks.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, and that, um, uh, and how much and especially with well, I believe that all people have, innate goodness, and I believe that
Hmm.
all people have great potential, at their core, and the young people that I have been close with to know how much potential they have and to see that thwarted
Yeah.
because of systems of oppression in our world, um, that it like, yeah, that makes me want to fight,
Yeah.
and also to know, because I think this is also important, especially like as a white person myself, and I think this is the important work of white people, like um, that we also have to operate from a space of solidarity and understanding how those systems have impacted our families. And I'm talking about systems of, especially systems of capitalism, um, have affected my family, and that also makes me want to fight. And I just say that as an important piece, because like then it doesn't come from this place of like charity or out of guilt or something like that, that I think we can often see white
Hmm.
people especially like slide into. It comes out of true like collective, a desire for collective liberation.
Yeah. No, I'm glad that you added that. I think that that's a very important point and something to definitely kind of bring some focus to and make sure that people or just understanding of as well. S-
Hmm.
Yeah. So, Shannon, of course, you're running for office, locally and everything. And to someone who's listening, maybe they're not at that stage, like they don't want to run for an elected official position, but they still want to make a difference in their community. They want to get involved, they want to do something. Do you have any advice for someone who they want to kind of be involved or more involved, but they're not really sure how to or where to start?
Yeah, I mean, I think um, the well, two phrases that come to mind. One is social justice begins at home, and the other one is a little sign that I have in my apartment above the sink, and it says, "Everybody wants a revolution, but nobody wants to do the dishes." And I actually I like the second one too,
Yeah.
um because I think often, especially in this time period, we can like get on social media and see people like, with their like revolutionary fist in the air, and like it's super sexy, and yeah, man, like that stuff is powerful and people should feel into their power, especially people who have experienced layers and layers of oppression. And often, the way you can get involved if you don't know is to do something in your own backyard, your own neighborhood, with somebody living next door to you. Um, and it's probably not going to be the sexiest thing in the world, and you may not be able to post it on Instagram. Um,
Right.
and and so yeah, I mean, I think there are so many things like when I think about that, like one of the things that's been so life-giving to me in this campaign that just happened through a thing like that is I gave one of my neighbors that I did not know a ride to her doctor's appointment, and she's become one of the best supporters for my campaign. um I think about an issue that you see, like for instance, on my block, I see people who are sleeping outside. I see them being removed from their spaces and rocks put in that space.
Mm.
So I worked with my neighbors and we figured out what city board initiates that. And we went and we made public comment, like you can speak out about things. Maybe you want to do something more direct, like, join with people to like feed folks, maybe whatever it is that like is your passion, maybe the thing you like to do, maybe like you like video games or quilting or something like that. I'm sure there's like a kid who wants to learn about coding with video games, or an elder neighbor who wants someone to like remind them how to quilt. Or I went and visited this place recently where they work with moms and babies and moms who have substance misuse issues, and they do quilting together. um I think though why I always talk about these sort of like direct acts of service is because like those relationships become the basis and the fuel for understanding um, the policy,
Yeah.
um, and um, and hopefully like if you're a person um, of privilege, you can speak to that, but you can also move the mic over, you know, to
Yeah.
those folks that you meet and say like, speak on it, you know, and yes, so there are like these systems level things that we need to fix, but we do that first by like building these relationships, and that's what I would encourage of people.
Yeah, I think that that's a great piece of advice to encourage others to do. And I think that it's like, maybe sometimes we might overthink it or get caught up in our heads about like, oh, like we have to do this, grand, huge gesture or something. But I mean, it doesn't like have to be anything monumental. Like just little things can go such a long way, and just little, community work or relationship building or anything. Like it doesn't have to be like, have to be like monetary. It doesn't have to be, oh, go donate money or something, or whatever. You can do so many little things that are going to have more of an impact than you might realize. So don't ever downplay kind of like your ability to make an impact, because I promise it's a lot larger than you might realize.
Totally. But give some money too, because Lord,
Yes.
like we got to share that. We got
Yeah.
to share.
Yes, 100%. If you're able to, for sure,
Yes.
give back when you can, and help those, who have similar passions, or help those that will be impacted by something that you are passionate about. I think that that's also something that's, you know, it can sometimes get forgotten about.
Mhm. Mhm.
Definitely. So, Shannon, to anyone that's listening, and, maybe they are in Denver and they want to maybe connect with you, or see how they can support you more directly in the city, or maybe they're not from Denver, maybe they're from, different state, different city, whatever, but they want to still kind of be able to follow your journey on, the campaign trail, and be able to support you or share kind of the work you're doing. What would be like the best ways to connect with you and to follow along with your journey?
For sure. We would welcome that. Our website, our campaign website is shannon-hoffman.com. And then all of our social medias, so Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I just haven't gotten the TikToks up yet, but all those
Okay.
other three are at Shannon Loves D10. And we do try to post a lot there of what we're up to. And then the other way, and you can get added to this through like our Instagram link tree or through the website, is our newsletter. But I kind of like that because it's a little bit longer form of being able to talk about what we've been up to in the campaign, and local resources as well.
Okay. Awesome. That's perfect. I will make sure that your website and the social medias and the links, on the social media pages where you can sign up for the newsletter, will be in the description of this episode. So, to anyone listening, if you didn't catch what Shannon just said, go down to the description, and all of her contact and social media and whatnot will be down there for you to check out. Um, in addition to just like, following and checking out, your pages and everything, is there anything else that, is extra helpful to, a candidate in your position? Like, is it sharing, posts? Is that going to be big? Or like engagement? Is there anything that anyone listening could specifically do to help?
Um, for sure. Sharing our stuff on social media is great.
Okay.
We are, a grassroots people powered campaign. So like donations are really helpful. And often I think folks think that that means they have to make some large sum of money. Like a $5 donation goes super far and is very helpful for us. It helps us do things like pay my campaign manager, who is a former union organizer, pay for like the materials that we need. And if you live in Denver, we have the Fair Elections Fund. So every donation that I receive, because I'm not taking any corporate donors, only individual donations, of all the Denver dollars that we receive get matched times 9. So a
Okay.
$5 donation gets matched from a city fund and becomes a $50 donation. So that is really helpful. Um, let's see. We also, are going to be on the ballot in April. So we have a lot of volunteer work here to do. So again, if people are local or if you're coming through to visit, we would love folks that want to knock some doors, or even if you're not coming through to visit but you want to help out, like send some text messages, make some phone calls. Those are all things that can be done remotely. We just need to, there's 65,000 people that live in the district that I'm running in, and so we want to try to talk to hopefully at least half of them, if not all
Yeah.
of them. So we could definitely use all the people powered help for that as well. So I think those are all the
Perfect.
things.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing everything that anyone can listening that can help out and do. Whether you're local to Denver or not, there are definitely different options that you can participate in. If the things that Shannon was talking about really resonated with you, or you have similar passions, I think she'd be a fantastic person to help out, to work with, to learn from, and just to connect with. So definitely, I would encourage anyone to go check out Shannon's social medias and connect with her. And if you feel called to volunteering and helping, or donating even, I would encourage you to do that as well. But as we're wrapping things up, is there any last thoughts, message, words that you want to leave to everyone listening, Shannon?
Hope is a discipline. That's from Miriam Kaba, who is an abolitionist. And it's just a little mantra that I say to myself, because it's not, hope is not some fluffy thing. It's something that we dedicate ourselves to every single day, even when it doesn't feel good.
Yeah, I have never heard that, but I think that that's a fantastic quote, and it's a little mantra that I definitely think I want to carry with me here on out as well. So, hope is a discipline. That's a good one, and I think that's a good way to end it. So, thank you so much, Shannon, for being on the podcast and for taking the time out of your day. I'm really happy and fortunate to be able to call you someone that's a friend and someone that I've learned from, and I know that you're already doing some really great things locally in the Denver area, and I'm really excited to see the work that you continue to do. And best of luck with the upcoming election. And I'm just really, really excited for you and all the things that you're going to be doing.
Thank you, Zach. Thank you so much for this conversation. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, of course. All right, I will talk to you later.
Talk to you later. Bye bye.
Bye.